Second half of stoppage time. World Cup final. Nothing. Deep into the 90 minutes. A loose ball drops into the box. A teenager in a red shirt cushions it off his chest. A defender in blue and white arrives late, studs first, and sends him flying. The referee's arm shoots straight into the air. Second yellow. Red card. 10 men. 80,000 people erupt. Not for a goal, for a foul. 2 years earlier, almost nobody in that stadium could have told you this kid's name. By the final whistle, they all would. We'll get back to that tackle. To understand why a foul on a defender could decide a World Cup final, you have to go back 19 years. Not to a slum, not to a shelter. To a carpentry workshop in a village too small to have its own football pitch. Estanyol is a hamlet inside the municipality of Bescanó, in the province of Girona, Catalonia. A few hundred people live there. There is no football pitch, no youth academy, no scouts office within walking distance. Just narrow streets, stone houses, and the sound of a table saw drifting out of one particular workshop most afternoons. On January 22, 2007, Pau Cubarsí was born into one of those families. His father, Robert, runs a carpentry workshop called Fusteria Cubarsí. The business has stood in that same village since 1905. 4 generations of Cubarsí men have worked that bench before him. Great-grandfather, grandfather, father, each one handing down the same trade to the next, the same tools, the same patience. His mother, Gloria Paredes, kept the household steady while his father built furniture by hand, piece by piece, one commission at a time. His older sister, Irene, grew up beside him and later trained as a physiotherapist. Someone else in the family who learned to work with precision, just on a different kind of structure. This is not a story about poverty. Nobody in this family ever went hungry. Nobody lost their home. This family built things, chairs, tables, cabinets, meant to survive 50 years of daily use without anyone admiring them for it. A well-made joint does not announce itself. It just holds. That distinction matters. Remember it. Pau grew up around wood shavings and sawdust, not football scouts. His own village did not have a pitch, so the game had to travel to find him. He played first for Vila Blaresh, a small local club, then moved into Girona's youth setup, a proper academy, but still an hour from home, still a world away from anything resembling a spotlight. He was not spotted by a famous coach at a showcase tournament under stadium lights. He was simply good, consistently, week after week, in matches nobody outside Girona was watching or recording. In 2018, at 11 years old, FC Barcelona's academy, La Masia, signed him. The drive from Estanyol to Barcelona takes an hour and a half each way. His parents made that drive more times than anyone counted, dropping a boy who still smelled faintly of his father's workshop into one of the most demanding youth systems on the planet. Inside La Masia, Pau was quiet. He did not chase attention, and attention did not come looking for him. Not yet. Coaches noticed something else about him before they noticed his talent. He almost never panicked. Other 11-year-olds chased the ball wherever it went. Pau read where it was going before it got there, the same way his father could look at a rough plank and already see the finished shape hiding inside it. One youth coach later put it simply, an old soul wearing a child's body. Nobody was building a highlight reel around him yet. He was still just a boy from a village with no pitch, learning to read a game the way his father read the grain of a piece of wood, before cutting. By January 2024, Pau Cubarsí was 17 years old and still playing youth football. No senior debut, no first-team number, Nothing on his resume that suggested the next 12 months were about to happen. Then, in the space of a single week, Barcelona's back line collapsed. Ronald Araujo was injured. Andreas Christensen picked up a knock of his own, mid-match, against Athletic Bilbao. Xavi Hernandez looked down his bench and found no fit senior center-back left to send on. He turned to a teenager who had never played a first-team minute in his life. On January 24, 2024, Pau Cubarsí walked onto a professional pitch for the first time, with no warning and no preparation period. Pulled straight out of a youth team routine and into one of the biggest clubs on earth, mid-crisis. He did not look out of place. He did not look rushed or overwhelmed or like a boy thrown into deep water. He looked like he had done this for a decade. 11 days later, he started a La Liga match against Real Betis, one day before his 17th birthday, still a teenager by every measure except how he played. On March 12th in the Champions League against Napoli, he made more completed passes than any other player on the pitch, in a knockout match on the biggest stage European football has to offer. He was named Man of the Match on his continental debut at 17 years and 1 month old. Nobody at that age had ever started a Champions League quarterfinal for Barcelona before him. He had just become the youngest ever to do it. 11 days after that, Spain came calling. On March 23, 2024, Cubarsí came off the bench against Colombia and broke a record held by Sergio Ramos, a defender with over 100 caps, one of the greatest Spain has ever produced, a name synonymous with the position itself. Cubarsí was now officially the youngest defender to ever play for the Spanish national team. 3 records, 3 months. The press had a phrase ready for him within weeks: the next Puyol. It was not a compliment thrown around lightly. Carles Puyol is a Barcelona legend, a World Cup winner, the man whose number Cubarsí would one day inherit. Being compared to him at 17 is not a gift. It is a weight, handed to a boy who had been playing senior football for less than 2 months. By June 2024, Spain's coach, Luis de la Fuente, named a provisional 29-man squad for the European Championship. Pau Cubarsí's name was on that list. For a 17-year-old who had broken 3 age records in 90 days, a place in a major tournament squad looked less like a hope and more like a formality, the natural next line on an already extraordinary resume. It was not a formality. On June 7, 2024, De La Fuente cut the squad down to 26. Pau Cubarsí's name came off the list. So did 2 other players, but neither of them had spent the season breaking records held by legends. The coach faced reporters afterward and admitted, in his own words, that the decision felt unfair to Cubarsí specifically. Unfair. His own word, said out loud on camera. He kept the decision anyway. Competition at the position, he explained. Numbers on a roster. The kind of explanation that is true and still does nothing to soften what it costs the person on the losing side of it. One name that stayed on that final list, Lamine Yamal, 16 years old, Cubarsí's own teammate, a boy from the very same academy, the very same generation, the very same training pitches at La Masia, where 2 kids once learned the game side by side, with nobody watching either of them yet. 5 weeks later, that decision would cost more than a place on a bus to Germany. It would cost him a front-row seat to history, and hand it instead to the friend standing right next to him. On July 14, 2024, Spain beat England in the final of Euro 2024 in Berlin. Lamine Yamal, 17 years and 1 day old, became the youngest player in the tournament's history to win it. Pau Cubarsí watched it happen from outside the squad. Not injured, not suspended, just left off a list. Forced to watch on a screen like anyone else. Same club, same academy, same generation of players who had grown up on the very same training pitches together, chasing the same ball as children. One of them lifted a trophy on live television in front of the entire continent. The other one was training for a consolation tournament that hadn't even started yet. 3 weeks after that, Cubarsí got his own shot. The Paris Olympics with Spain's under-23 side. It did not go the way a redemption story is supposed to go. In the group stage against Uzbekistan, he was whistled for a foul inside his own box. Penalty conceded. Booked in the same half. He did not come back out for the second half of that match. Pulled, quietly. The kind of substitution nobody replays. In the final against France, Spain won gold in a wild 5-3 thriller. But the headlines belonged to Fermín López, who scored twice, and to a substitute named Sergio Camello, who scored twice more in extra time. Cubarsí played the full 90, quietly, competently, doing the unglamorous work that keeps a backline from falling apart. Nobody wrote his name on the front page the next morning. He had a gold medal. He did not have a story anyone was telling. The 2024-25 season followed the same pattern, just longer, stretched across 10 months instead of one summer. Barcelona won a domestic treble under a new manager, Hansi Flick. Cubarsí played more senior minutes than almost anyone else in the squad, behind only 2 teammates, a teenager outlasting players nearly twice his age. Commentators had one word for him over and over in nearly every match report: reliable. It is the word people reach for when nothing went wrong, and nothing going wrong is somehow never the headline, never the highlight, never the thing a stranger brings up at a dinner table. Meanwhile, in September 2025, at the Ballon d'Or ceremony in Paris, his own teammate Yamal finished second in the world, one of only 2 players to break 1,000 points that year. Applauded, photographed, celebrated on a stage built for exactly one kind of story. Cubarsí's name was not part of that conversation, not because he had failed, because a great defender's greatest work is the disaster that never happens, and nobody hands out an award for a catastrophe that simply didn't occur. That same month, Barcelona handed him something else instead: the number 5 shirt, once worn by Carles Puyol, later by Sergio Busquets. It is not just fabric. At Barcelona, that number carries a specific kind of expectation: leadership, permanence, a place in the club's own bloodline, stitched onto the back of a 19-year-old who had grown up idolizing the man who last made that number mean something. Now it was on his back, every match, in front of 80,000 people at a time. And still, nobody outside Catalonia could confidently pick his face out of a lineup. The summer of 2026 arrived, a World Cup spread across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The biggest edition in the tournament's history, the loudest stage football has ever built. A hamstring knock threatened to keep Cubarsí out before it even began. A cruel, familiar kind of setback, the sort of thing that had cost him a tournament before. It didn't keep him out. He started every match Spain played. In the round of 16 in Dallas, he lined up against Cristiano Ronaldo in what was almost certainly Ronaldo's final World Cup appearance. A defender not yet 20, facing down one of the greatest to ever play the position he was defending against. Spain won 1-0. In the semifinal, for the 3rd summer running, Spain's road ran directly through France. Spain won again, 2-0. A clean sheet behind a defense Cubarsí anchored from the back, quiet and exact, closing gaps before they became dangerous. By the final, against Argentina, something had changed. Nobody was calling him the next Puyol anymore, as though he were still waiting to arrive, still auditioning for a comparison he hadn't earned yet. He had already arrived. Across the tournament, he had shut down Cristiano Ronaldo, Kylian Mbappé, and now, in the final, Lionel Messi himself. A 39-year-old playing in what nearly everyone assumed was the last World Cup match of his career. Two legends, two different generations, both moving the ball toward the same teenager standing in their way. 90 minutes finished scoreless. Argentina had not managed a single shot on target in normal time. Then, deep into second-half stoppage time, the moment we opened with. A loose ball inside the box. Cubarsí cushions it on his chest. Enzo Fernandez comes in late, studs first, and sends him flying. Second yellow card. Red. 10 men for Argentina, with extra time still to survive. Spain had one final free kick before the whistle. Lamine Yamal's shot, saved by the smallest margin. The same teenager who had lifted a trophy without him 2 years earlier, now standing over a ball that could have won this one outright. Extra time. Deep into the second period, a substitute named Ferran Torres pounces on a loose ball and drives it under the crossbar. 1-0. The 106th minute. 10-man Argentina had nothing left to answer with. Spain were world champions. Pau Cubarsí finished the final with the joint most recoveries of any player on the pitch, 8, and the most clearances, 6. FIFA gave him the Best Young Player award of the entire tournament. Not reliable. Not a footnote next to somebody else's name. Best Young Player, out of every eligible teenager on Earth, at the biggest tournament in the sport. Back in Español, the workshop is still open. Fusteria Cubarsí has been building things since 1905, long before television, long before football even had a World Cup, long before anyone in that family could have imagined a stadium holding 80,000 people watching one of their own. Nobody photographs a well-made chair. Nobody replays a table that has held steady for 40 years. The value of that kind of work is not that people notice it. The value is that it simply does not fail. Highlight reels remember Lamine Yamal's free kick curling toward the top corner. They remember Messi's tears on the podium. Almost nobody will remember 8 recoveries and 6 clearances by a 19-year-old defender with a quiet voice and a Catalan accent so thick he once avoided interviews rather than stumble through Spanish on camera. But without those 8 recoveries, without that one tackle drawing a red card at exactly the right second, there is no free kick to remember, no trophy to lift, no version of that night where Spain walks away champions at all. Somewhere between a village with no football pitch and a stadium holding 80,000 people sits the actual story. Not the one with fireworks, the one underneath them, holding everything up. Here's something worth arguing about. Which matters more to a legacy? The moment everyone remembers? The free kick, the trophy lift, the tears? Or the disaster that never happened because someone was standing in exactly the right place before anyone else even saw it coming? You can't have one without the other. Pick the one you'd rather be. Tell me why in the comments. I'll read every answer.